How's it going, everybody? This is Brian for Pop Culture Crossing, and today we are talking about the 1999 action-adventure film, The Mummy. This movie features some unpredictability and boasts strong performances and technicality. It stands well on its own among the ranks of other renowned action-adventure movies, and The Mummy is really a good choice if you're looking for a fun action movie steeped in historical fiction. The film's story centers on Evelyn Carnahan, an Egyptologist and librarian currently living in Egypt, and her brother Jonathan. The two are associated with an antiquities museum, and when they happen upon a map that supposedly depicts Hamunaptra, the ancient Egyptian city of the dead, which also happens to be the site of all of ancient Egypt's wealth, the two decide to enlist the help of Rick O'Connell, a former member of the French Foreign Legion who has actually been to Hamunaptra's ruins. Now, during the ancient Egyptian kingdom of Pharaoh Seti I, the pharaoh was killed by his mistress and her lover and priest, Imhotep, in an act of treachery. This resulted in a curse being put upon Imhotep because of the assassination. However, the modern-day adventurers realize that this curse may actually be a reality and not some embellishment of lore. The Mummy includes a prologue part that does a nice job at providing viewers with the necessary exposition regarding the duplicity of Imhotep and his mistress. This really sets the stage quite well for the introduction of the modern day characters, and acts as a springboard for their adventure. At the macro level, the Mummy's structure is pretty typical for this type of film. You have an expository element that leads into a modern day group of people searching for an object or a site, and then you have guardians who are preserving that site, and then you have conflict and chaos that ensues thereafter. Regardless of this framework, The Mummy is not wholly predictable, and this at once keeps the film feeling entertaining and fresh. There is one scene in the third act, however, when a character does not immediately do what he is intended to do in this scene, and because of the context and what's going on around him, it just feels really jolting and it comes off very oddly, and this should have been reworked. It's clear what the filmmakers were going for with this scene, and it was supposed to be kind of comedic, but it seems stilted and flat, and this portion notwithstanding, the pacing and story of The Mummy really have great progression and development. As is expected, the tonal themes in The Mummy consist of adventure, treasure hunting, archaeology, and historical fiction. In general, the film is decidedly more oriented toward treasure hunting than, say, the academic or archaeological angle of other well-known films in the genre, such as the Indiana Jones series. And this really aids The Mummy in establishing its own feel and carving out its own niche in that genre, and it prevents it from coming off as derivative. Not surprisingly, there are some head-shaking moments when characters do stupid things. It's kind of like in Alien, or the Alien series, or just really any monster movie where you're pulling your hair out wondering why the characters are doing such stupid things as they are, and The Mummy is no exception to that. It would have been nice if it could have broken this stereotypical behavior, as that would have set it apart even more, but alas, that is not the case. The performances from the leading and supporting cast are great. Rachel Weisz does an excellent job in her portrayal of the bookish and winsome Evelyn Carnahan. Evelyn is a very likable character, though she does mention the Bembridge scholars one too many times. This does play into her character's academic bent, but you really don't want that one piece of dialogue becoming hackneyed in a 2-hour movie, and this line should have been omitted once or twice to prevent oversaturation. Brendan Fraser's Rick O'Connell is initially abrasive and gruff, but he does become more and more amiable as the story develops. Fraser has some pretty good reactions and lines in light of the occurrences that happen at Hamunaptra's ruins and with the Mummy, and yet it is weird that O'Connell uses one of his companions' face to strike a match. Again, like with that element I mentioned in the third act, this is supposed to be a joke and for comedic effect, but it really falls flat and should have been left on the cutting room floor. Fortunately, Weiss and Fraser have great on-screen chemistry, and the two were actually my favorite characters in the movie. The supporting cast is notable. John Hannah's Jonathan Carnham is well acted. Hannah convincingly depicts Jonathan's naivete and opportunism, and he, along with the other American adventurers, portrayed by Stephen Dunham, Corey Johnson, and Tuck Watkins, really create a great balance. In terms of the antagonist, Arnold Vosloo gives a great performance as Imhotep. Vosloo does an expert job at portraying the mummy's power and seeming invulnerability. It should also be noted that there are a few characters that are a bit cookie cutter and too on the nose. This is not a serious critique, however, but is worth mentioning nevertheless. The cinematography and production design are strengths of the film. The cinematography does a great job capturing the characters' reactions to their respective situations. This blends well with the production design and CGI. For the most part, the CGI has held up surprisingly well. And there are some creative and interesting aspects that tie into the mummy itself and how he gains his power, and these are effectively depicted by the special effects. And this all speaks to the creative, albeit frightening, art direction and production design, and also the story and writing itself of the film. The iconic scarab sequence is still really great and looks great. Oddly enough, there is another scene with a horde of scarabs, and they really only seem to move in one direction, and they don't veer off their path to pursue their targets. And if this is supposed to be intentional, it should have been better explained. If not, then it was conspicuous and odd enough that it really took me out of the movie for a few moments. Stephen Sommers does a good job in his direction of The Mummy. The manner in which Sommers blends the intriguing adventure with the enjoyable characters, notwithstanding the ones I mentioned that are a bit too cookie cutter, the strong performances, impressive production design and CGI, and the fitting theme song is admirable. The film also received the Academy Award nomination for Best Sound, which is another example of the strong technical aspects of the film. Further, Sommers helps make The Mummy a unique film that can stand on its own in light of other films in the genre. In the end, The Mummy is a great action-adventure film. It's definitely a movie to watch when you want to sit back, let your brain relax, and enjoy a good silver screen adventure. If you are in the mood for an adventure movie with historic fiction and treasure hunting aspects, or you're looking for a popcorn flick or a movie set in Egypt, or just simply an alternative to other films in that genre or similar films, then I think you're definitely going to be entertained by The Mummy. So that's my review of The Mummy. Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments below and on our social media. As always, there's a full detailed written review at popculturecrossing.com. In the meantime, why don't you let me know what your favorite action-adventure movie is, as well as your favorite monster movie. I'm curious to hear your picks there, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.